Hello and welcome to another kingdom analysis. My name is Martin. I'm working my way through a whole range of kingdoms and just kind of like analysing them in the 867 start initially and thinking about what are the sort of things that a player needs to think about when they're beginning in this region. Now this is going to be the kingdom of Buryatia. And I'm sure that is not how you pronounce Buryatia, but I'm going to call it Buryatia. And it's quite a large kingdom, very, very low level of development, and the far northeastern corner of the map. We're going to be having a look at all of the following things. Excuse me, I look down at my notes. We're going to be looking at the local rulers. So what's the kind of like the political situation in the area? We're going to be thinking about the inhabitants, that is the populations, the actual people of these places. What are their culture? What is their religion like, and how does that relate to the broader area around them? We're going to be looking at the land itself and the terrain and what impact that might have on game decisions. And we are going to be thinking about title organisation, what we might want to be thinking about keeping as a part of our domain for sort of short, medium, and longer term, and how we might be dishing those other titles out to vassals as we grow. And finally, we'll just talk about what might be your goals if you decide to start in this part of the world. What might be the things that you decide to focus on doing? Okay, so let's have a little look at the kind of the political situation. Now, when I do my playthrough, I'm going to be beginning as the Duke of this place, Dauria. I'm probably going to build my own leader to start with to make it a bit more fun, a bit more interesting. But he obviously rules this whole duchy here. You can see he's got the duchy title, and he actually has all four of the county titles. I'm just going to check there are four because I keep notes on these sorts of things. Yes, there are four county titles. He holds them all. The obvious thing is you see this kingdom is very, very sort of disunited. There are lots of rulers, but they're not small. They're not small. You know, if you think about the Ireland analysis we did, we really were looking at taking over one county rulers one after another. Kotara is ruled by this man here, and he has 3 counties. He doesn't have the duchy title. I think some of these are in his duchy. We've got this guy here. He also has 3 duchy titles. So they're much, much more powerful. 1,000 men, 1,250 men. I mean, these are similar to or bigger than our own armies. We've got this realm here, 1,100 men, and 3 county titles. And I think this one's the same. 3 county titles, 4 county titles. You've also got a little kingdom down, a little duchy down here, very small duchy, just 2 counties. But that's obviously a part of this much bigger empire that we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's perfectly possible, in a very, very straightforward way, to take all of these in a relatively short amount of time. The difficulty that you're going to find with all of them is that you're going to need to build up a better army. You're going to start with a certain amount of prestige. We've got 450 here. We've got some good men at arms, but obviously that will be randomised each time that you start. But you're going to need to take a little bit of time and do a little bit of work to build that army up and make sure that it's powerful enough to take out your first target. At the beginning, you're only going to be able to take 1 county. So if I want to declare on this guy, you see we don't have, we need to exalt him when we're a long way away from that, even illustrious, a long, long way away from it. We're going to have to we're going to have to take them 1 county at a time. And, we've come across that problem before. It means that we take the county, that's fine. We start to incorporate it into our realm, but we can't then attack that leader again for, I think it's 5 years. We're going to have to go and find somebody else. So we're going to be finding that we would be like attacking Kotara, and then when we're ready, we'll attack Chuya, and then we'll attack this one, and then we'll attack that one, and by that time we might be able to get back to Kotara, we'll be able to attack that. And of course, at each bite of the apple, we become stronger and they become somewhat weaker. So by the time we're going back round, it's going to be easier, but it's still going to take a considerable amount of time to be able to take enough of these counties to form the kingdom. And in this case, the kingdom title requires Well, we only need 4 more counties, and then of course to save up the money, we can form the kingdom, and then probably it would make sense to start trying to perhaps vassalise the rest of them. The other thing to talk about is that many of these, as you saw as we were going around, many of these people have not formed the duchy that they more or less control. This guy is a count, he's a count of 3 territories, but he does not have the duchy title of this area, which is largely it's entirely within his realm. That means that you can form it. So if we can make some money, we can form those as we are able to, and give ourselves a boost to our prestige, which is obviously going to help us to build armies, as we're tribal at the beginning of this campaign, etc. So it's going to take time, but forming that kingdom is absolutely possible. We're going to need, obviously, to stay away from the Uda Valley. So the Uda Valley is, as the best way of showing this, the Uda Valley is a small 2-county duchy here, and it is controlled by your man here, High Chieftain Husum, and I think he's got the duchy title and he's got both counties, but he has a liege lord, Kirku, the Karkan Uzar of the Kirkiz Khaganate. We can't attack the Uda Valley. We'd be absolutely smashed. Very, very difficult to get into this man's lineage, kind of like plant a daughter or anything, because he's got 4 sons, and they're very, very unkeen. I've had a look at it. Very, very unkeen to marry a lowlife like me. But I think by the time we're forming into kingdoms, we're going to be able to play havoc with the Kirkiz Khanate. So Kirkiz Khanate, obviously very powerful. A very sensible thing to do, might be right from the beginning, is to make him your liege lord. He will accept it. If you've got a good leader, perhaps very good at good spy master, for example, got lots of sort of intrigue skills, it might become his spy master. And I think it would be almost rude not to immediately murder him if you get into as close to him as that, and then work your way through. Either way, one way or another, the Kirkiz Khanate is going to be a very important part of this playthrough. It might be that you're able to get into the position of becoming that emperor because he's an emperor, or it might be that you force that great empire to break up into smaller parts so that you can take it over one by one. But obviously, any strategy has got to be thinking very, very carefully about what happens in the Great Khanate here. So let's have a look at the culture of the peoples here. Now you see we've got our own culture here, the Buryat culture, and we're hoping eventually to be the king of Buryat. So we're going to be king of our own, kind of very sort of distinct culture. But it's quite a small culture relative to the areas around us. We've got the Kyrgyz over here, we've got Mongols over here, who we are culturally related to. And of course we speak a Mongolic language, so which I think is the same language that is spoken all around these sorts of areas that we might eventually want to be certainly interacting with, maybe ruling. So we are at the heart of a huge Mongol cultural area, but we have a particular sub-branch of it called the Buryat culture. And what's special about this culture is, because it's relatively small, we're the head of it. So that's if we're starting as this particular leader. If we didn't, we very quickly become it by just taking 1 or 2 counties. So very, very quickly going to become the realm leader. But if we have a look just very quickly at the development, it's basically 0 everywhere. And the problem with that is that we're going to be picking up innovations incredibly slowly. So longer term, we need a strategy for improving that. And you can see, look, we've got mustering grounds and quilted armour and plenary assemblies. I mean, that's worse than an island start. We often have 4 or 5 innovations. We have 3. So, long way to go. And it's going to be incredibly slowly that we work our way through these as things stand. We do, however, have some interesting. Obviously, this is a male-dominated culture. I think You cannot make females leaders, but they can inherit if there are no boys. This is a good one. However, most of the other cultures around us have this as well. Horse lords allow us to build horse archers. They cost 270 gold, I think, per level in each regiment. So they're very expensive, but you look at the stats, they're great all across. So they're a great men-at-arms to be investing in and building up over time. The difficulty with them is that they're really awful in mountains. And actually, this is a start that begins in the mountains. I think it's once you get onto the sort of the flat ground, onto the steppe proper, they're very, very effective. In those first early campaigns fighting to actually take that kingdom, they're going to be a mixed blessing. I think that's the truth. Steppe tolerance is interesting. It just means that really it's going to be very, very easy converting people from religions and the like. Sacred mountains. We gain piety when we build buildings in those holdings. So it's going to be, we've got lots of holdings around here which are mountainous. So it's going to be worth developing those because we're going to get some piety in addition to what we normally get. And taxes are slightly higher in mountain areas, 5% higher. But we'll look at the terrain in a minute. But actually, mountains aren't the best places to be kind of like developing long term anyway. Mystical ancestors is a disadvantage, really. It just makes it impossible for us to disinherit dynasty members. But something that of course, is missing from here is things like Ting Meat, Wittengmont, which I don't think, even if we reform Buryatia, I don't think we can have those. They'd be under realm, wouldn't they? But basically, these are the elective succession types. We don't have an we don't seem to have an elective succession type available to us any time early in the game. So we are going to come across issues of having to manage confederate partition for a very, very long time in the game. So we are going to have all those kind of issues, and we can't even disinherit our children. So it's an interesting culture. In some ways, it's a weak culture. This is the only strong thing really about it, is those horse lords. But I think it's possible for that to become very important later on. So let's have a look at the religions. Obviously, we're Tengriism, and we're actually a part of the vast. All these other places have got share our religion. We've got this Turmeric up here. Turmeric, I think, is related to us. We consider them hostile, so perhaps not. Some interesting things about it is, first off, we are male dominated, and that's going to give us perhaps the benefit of at least not having to worry about females in succession. We tend to being pluralist means that we can convert 20% more slowly, but it's easier for us to rule over people with a different faith. They're less likely to join factions. And in the normal way, we have a theocratic religion, so our temple holdings are leased out to priests, but there are very few or none in this part of the world. It isn't something that we need to be thinking about in the early part of the game till we become feudal and start to actually sort of like build those. There are 3, I think, maybe more than 3. Oh, there's 4 or 5 holy sites. Only 3 that are really within our area of control. And this one's making our knights much more effective. The thing is, of course, that it's doing it with all the other Tengris as well. We're probably going to be fighting Tengris quite a lot. Relatively minor prowess per level of devotion. And over here, an improvement to our light cavalry and archers and things like that. Probably not that impactful, depending on our kind of strategy for building our army. Esotericism is really, really good because it makes the wise man virtue a virtue. So we get plus 10 Tengri opinion if we're a wise man, and we also get additional piety per turn. So if I'm building a leader, I'm going to be thinking about possibly using the wise man, mystic and miracle worker as well. They're a little bit less common. Wise man also, we can get it generically. Children with the learning education focus have a reasonable chance of getting the wise man trait, so that's useful. Ancestor worship just gives a bit of a bonus really to your newborns and to yourself when you get married, and it be increased to levels of prestige. That could be useful at the beginning of a playthrough as a way like picking somebody who perhaps is going to give you a couple of hundred prestige and finding that doubled to sort of 400 or something like that. That, you know, it makes thinking about the prestige of the person you're marrying much, much more worthwhile. And warmonger means we have to be at war an awful lot. So we need to be thinking about what kind of a character is going to be best for that when we're working our way through. Interesting that brave is a virtue. Just and honest both have kind of considerable drawbacks. Actually, brave has a considerable drawback in that you're more likely to die in battle, but very often you don't want your leader involved in battles anyway. Sins are the obvious things, I suppose. Arbitrary, craven, and deceitful. The problem with the sins is that they're all the things that make you really, really good at intrigue. So you build a character that's going to be really, really good at intrigue. They're going to be negative piety most likely. So that's something to be very, very careful about, because I think in this situation with such a powerful neighbour, we are going to want to be somewhat intrigueful. We can obviously have multiple marriages. Males can have multiple marriages. Witchcraft is criminal, and that probably does it for the holy site, for the religions. So let's zoom in a little bit and just have a little bit of a look at the terrain hereabouts. And basically, there's four types of terrain. We've got the mountains, we've got the hills, we've got the taiga. Mountains, very, very low supply limits, very, very poor sort of development growth. But actually, the supply limit helps the defender. So one thing we've got is very, very defensible counties at the beginning of this playthrough. There's a taiga one there, but most of these are mountains. Very, very strong defensively, and not even partly because the combat width is so much smaller. So a force that's attacking you that is bigger than you doesn't gain much advantage by being bigger, because you're only able to use part of your force at any one time, and of course 12 defender advantage, which is really quite substantial. So this is very, very, very good defensive terrain. Long term, probably not brilliant terrain for developing and building. Going forward into the mid and late game, probably want to be moving away from some of these areas. Then we got some hills down here, haven't we? So this is hills. I thought it was taiga. This is hills. So hills are slightly better than mountains. They're a bit like mountains, but not quite so much. You've still got the slow movement speed. You've still got a supply limit, a development limit, a penalty to development, but it's much, much less than in the mountains. So if there was somewhere you wanted to develop, you'd probably be thinking about the hills rather than the mountains. You've still got limited combat width, but it's 80%, not 50%. Still got a combat defender advantage, but it's 5, not 12. Okay, so it's very, very light hills, but kind of less, if that makes sense. And then over here we've got the taiga, and see here, a very, very small limit penalty to development growth of only 5%. Supply limit is 20% smaller. Combat width 80%. Some respects this is not dissimilar to the hills, but it's only a 4 combat advantage for the defender. The thing is, the thing is that we're going to be on the attack most of the time, and we're the one that's going to be facing those penalties. We need to think through very carefully before we go into attack to make sure that we've got the strength necessary to win the campaign, to defeat them in the mountains, with all of the advantages that being in the mountains is likely to give them. Okay, so now let's think about the kind of structure of the duchies, the structure of the counties. I always make one of these up before I play. so that I can get a sense. So if I just show you the duchies. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Uda Valley, Dauria, Bargujin, Tukum, Baigulis, Sagan, Baigul. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the ones in the kingdom that we want. This is not. These are in a different kingdom. So of those 5, because none of them have church holdings, none of them have cities, essentially every county is just worth the same. There's no such thing as a really, they've all got 0 development, they're all equally valuable. So in terms of having 2 duchies in the early game, when you become the king of this area, in terms of having 2 duchies, I think you need to be thinking about which ones have the most counties that you can combine in such a way with whatever your domain limit is. Now, my domain limit here is only 3, but of course, when I become a king, that'll go up to 4. When I got married, it might go up to 5. So thinking, for example, let's say this character ends up settling with about 5 domain capacity, I would be looking at, for example, if you take Dauria, this has 4 counties. None of the others have 4. Barjum Tukum has... Actually, no, that's not true. Barjum Tukum also has 4. Okay? But if we've got 5... Do you see what I mean? We'll have one duchy, Dauria, which actually is the capital of the kingdoms. We have 4. Then we've got like a spare, which we'll kind of have to like put into some other sort of duchy. What makes sense, perhaps, is to have a 2 and a 3. So, for example, the Uda Valley, that has 2 counties, and it might be that I decide long term that Uda Valley is going to be one of my duchies, and I'm going to own both of the counties there, as well as Tassana Baigul, because that has 3. So I have 2 duchies, and I can own in their entirety the counties within them. That's what I think I would be thinking about doing longer term. And if I had 6 domain limit, then I'd want Dauria and the Uda Valley, because that adds up to 6. If I've only got 4, I'll be maybe just going for Dauria, or perhaps go for Baigaluls and Uda Valley, both of which have 2. That adds up to 4. So you see what I mean? I'm trying to mix and match these together to kind of give myself sort of like maximum sort of capability. And then as the game progresses, we are going to want things that give us better horsemen, essentially. And here we have it. Heavy cavalry. Archer cavalry damage +4. So we're going to want to be looking for war camps, because every war camp we have in our domain is going to improve the effectiveness of that heavy archer cavalry that we're going to be getting. We want gathering halls to help pay for them, because that's how we're going to get additional prestige, and then perhaps markets. And then actually palisades only really important if we see ourselves as being in a kind of a defensive kind of like position. Longer term, these are not but the richest lands in the game. If we become feudal, and you happen to still be the Duke of Dauria, each of these counties has 3 baronies. Yeah, all of them do. Okay, so there are worse. 3, but at the end of the day, there are going to be richer lands somewhere else. And I think long term, you can build this kingdom. You can make this kingdom an important power base for you as you leapfrog over the Kyrgyz Khanate and grow and expand. And so we come to the last part, where we simply think about what might be the kind of the goals for this individual. And I think there's one very, very obvious one. Here's our character here. He's got a decision available to him to become the greatest of the Khans. King of kings, Khan of Khans. I have no idea why you wouldn't be aiming to do this, and I'll show you why in just a moment. The first is actually, I think it's very achievable. It requires that you are step, and we are exalted among men. Well, we're going to be going on conquests. We're going to get there. We're going to get to exalted among men. The highest title held is got to be empire, so we do have to become an emperor. Realm size is 100. It's currently 4. We've got tribal government, and we are steppe region. 100 realm size. Well, if we're 100 realm size, we're going to be able to have an empire title by then. But I had a quick look. This empire here, if you are able to find a way of usurping that, of marrying a daughter to a young guy with a using some sort of way of bending the Khan's arm and getting a matrilineal marriage with a young child of this dynasty, and then murdering everybody and rising to the top of it. If you are able to do that, there's 94 counties in that empire. If you can't, try to get it to dissolve and increasingly take bits out of it, and you'll very quickly start to conquer large chunks of it. There'll be duchies, there'll be whole kingdoms that you might be able to take in one go once your kind of like renown is high enough. Take this and this little area here, and you would have enough to form the King of Kings, Khan of Khans. Now, having just looked at what the benefits of this are, and this is why I think this is exciting. You get the title, Greatest of Khans. I love a title. You get a nickname, Genghis Khan. You gain a level of fame. You gain access to a Mongol invasion, Casus Belli, which I think is I believe is a very cheap way of attacking targets. Your realm becomes the Mongol Empire. You get the high partition one. I mean, bearing in mind how slowly the Mongols are probably going to be developing technology, here's an opportunity for you to grab that higher up technology relatively early. And there's this. You get an army of 31,350 men. Become the greatest of Khans, and you can begin the greatest kind of invasion of them all. Absolutely going nuts. That's what I think I'm going to be trying to do next Friday when I publish my game on YouTube. Thank you very much for listening to this. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got something out of it. I'm going to be doing these every couple of weeks. I'm going to be doing another one. If there is a place in the world where you would perhaps like me to focus, then put some comments in the bottom. If you think I missed anything, or you've got some other ideas about the way that this might play out, make some comments. And don't forget to, if you got this far, you've listened to the whole thing, give it a thumbs up as well, and definitely consider subscribing. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.